In this Baldur's Gate 3 video, I'm going to be showing you our Bard class guide for Baldur's Gate 3 Early Access and just showing you what I found to work best with this class so far. I'll obviously be doing a lot more build guides at the launch of BG3, but for now, let's look at how you can make a Bard effectively in the first act of the game. Bards wield magic differently compared to other casters in that they seamlessly weave it into their captivating tales they tell and that the beautiful tunes they play. Due to their high charisma, they can easily inspire comrades while crippling foes in and out of combat. Bards are also adept at protecting themselves from taking too much damage by casting buffs and improving the type of armor they wear. Unlike wizards of the evocation school who focus on primarily casting offensive spells, bards often make use of crowd control abilities to manipulate the direction of the fight. Because of their natural curiosity and thirst for knowledge, they always have the upper hand in any situation, making them a jack of all trades. Bards are proficient in simple finesse and some ranged weapons, and depending on their subclass, they can either wear light or medium armor, and potentially even use shields. Moving on to character creation for Bard in Early Access, for background, I suggest taking the rest of the charisma skills since Bards need a good amount of this ability for their spells to land on targets and to bolster the success rate of dazzling NPCs in dialogue. These are Deception, Persuasion, Intimidation, Performance. Bards absolutely excel in dialogue scenarios in BG3, so I highly recommend taking these. When it comes to races, you want to prioritize one that increases charisma since this is the spellcasting ability of Bards. The first race I would recommend is the Wood Half-Elf. Not only can you gain +2 charisma, but you can also allocate 1 point each to Dexterity and Constitution, which are your next essential abilities. Dexterity is a must in order to maximize the armor class of the Bard, whereas Constitution raises their max HP. Both of these should improve your resilience and survivability in combat. Additionally, a higher Constitution increases the success rate of Constitution saving throws, which are necessary for spells that require Constitution. As such, you should aim for at least 14 Dexterity and 16 Constitution at level 1. Dexterity is set to 14 in order to gain +2 Dexterity when you're wielding medium armor. And you gain the medium armor proficiency upon choosing the College of Valor subclass. However, if you don't select this subclass, you may want a higher dexterity. Moreover, the Wood Half-Elf has dark vision to improve your line of sight, thereby ensuring that spells within a specific range will land on the target better. You also gain access to enhanced movement speed and stealth proficiency. The next race you should consider selecting for the Bard class is the Human, since you essentially gain +1 point to each of your abilities. And Bards are kind of a jack of all trades. They can use Dexterity, they can use Constitution, they can use Charisma, and because they have so much proficiency with skills, even having points in Wisdom and Intelligence does not hurt them, or at least not having negative modifier. And another decent selection for this class is also Drow, since they gain +1 Charisma and +2 Dexterity together with superior Dark Vision, which allows them to cast even further in the dark without missing their spells or using ranged attacks more efficiently. When it comes to skills, it's not super important, but you'll have high charisma and dexterity, so selecting skills that fall under these abilities is ideal. For instance, acrobatics and stealth and sleight of hand. Since we've already listed the charisma skills, you have an idea what those are. You also get to choose from a variety of musical instruments from lyre, violin, and lute, to name a few. These improve the way you cast spells due to the entertainment value they provide, but they don't actually have a combat implication, so select the one that you think is best. When it comes to your abilities, the primary ability of the Bard is Charisma, because this makes their spells more effective, and for this reason you want at least 16 of this ability during character creation and likely later on. And another good reason to take this ability is because that their Bardic Inspiration skill, the number of times you can use it per day, is based on their ability modifier of Charisma. So when you get this to +4, you'll actually be able to use this 4 times a day. And if you have it at 16, you'll be able to use it 3. Less than that, and you won't get to use it as often. Since this is a key feature of the Bard, having higher charisma will improve the amount of times you can use this. Additionally, as I mentioned, Dexterity and Constitution are also fantastic abilities to choose for the Bard, not only for armor class and ranged attacks, but also to increase their HP and to maintain concentration when they're using, spells that require it. Bards only begin the game with light armor, so these are good. However, if you do end up going College of Valor, as I mentioned earlier, you'll be able to use medium armor, and you will only need 14 Dexterity in this case. When it comes to Strength, Wisdom, and Intelligence, you don't really need these for these builds, so these can vary a little bit. They're going to, again, affect your skill checks. If you want to play a melee Bard, if you're going to play College of Valor, you can actually increase Strength in order to melee more effectively. Especially if you're going to be using medium armor, you only need 14 dexterity. You can put points into strength and have like a combination of strength, dexterity, constitution, and charisma, while not really investing in intelligence and wisdom, and that will work as well. As I mentioned a little bit ago, one of the benefits of a bard is their bardic inspiration, which they can use as a bonus action up to the amount of times per day based on their charisma modifier. And what this does, it allows them to provide a 1d6 roll or die to the attack roll, ability check, or saving throw of them or another member in their party, which is absolutely phenomenal. In Baldur's Gate 3 combat, for instance, the bonus die you add to another character will automatically be added to the target's next attack roll. So they're going to use it on the next attack, whether you want them to not. So just keep that in mind before using it. Otherwise, you may waste it in a scenario where you might, overkill. During character creation, bards will also get to pick from certain cantrips and spells. But unlike wizards, they don't need to prepare from a known list of spells. Instead, they have a limited number of spells that are readily available, not unlike the sorcerer class. And as such, you need to be a little bit more selective about the ones you intend to learn, since bards don't have access to all of their spells. You can select for them. I highly recommend choosing Thunderwave and Dissonant Whispers as your offensive spells. Thunderwave is a great AoE that can knock enemies back, often to their death in this game, but it has a very short range, so you're only going to use it when you're close by. And you also have to be careful not to hit allies with it, as you can do that, and you don't want to send them flying off the cliff. Dissonant Whispers, on the other hand, is a great, powerful ranged spell. It's a single target that does 3 to 18 psychic damage and inflicts frighten against the target, and in doing so, they will incur disadvantage on their attack rolls. This is great because it can often protect players or characters from, enemies at the same time as dealing damage, which is good. The next set of spells to consider is Healing Word and Heroism. Healing Word lets you heal any party member you can see from a distance. And it's also a bonus action, which is phenomenal. And it'll also pick up characters that have been downed if you cast it on them while they're down, which is another really good way to, keep fighting until one of your characters is down and then just toss this on them and they get right back up. Comparatively, Hero is a new enchantment spell that provides a nearby ally with temporary HP for 10 turns while preventing them from being subjected to the effects of Frightened. But note that this also requires concentration, so you'll have to be able to maintain that to keep this spell up, and you won't be able to use other spells that require concentration during its duration without overriding it. At level 1, you'll be able to choose 2 cantrips, and I highly recommend Vicious Mockery and Dancing Lice. Vicious Mockery is a new cantrip that allows you to deal 1 to 4 psychic damage and hurls a series of insults at the target to impose disadvantage on their next attack roll, which again is a great way of dealing some damage and also protecting your group. Dancing Lights is just good all around because if you picked a race that's not adept at seeing in the dark, or even if you have other party members that aren't, creating light will make it easier for you to hit targets as well as your party members. At level 2, you're going to gain the Jack of All Trades, which allows you to gain half of your proficiency bonus rounded down to specific skills that you do not have proficiency in. So in early access, you get a +1 bonus to, say, Perception as long as you are not proficient with it. And Jack of All Trades is a decent feature for the bard because this turns you into an all-around character, making non-combat encounters relatively easier to deal with. And as I mentioned before, you're probably going to be using your bard to handle most of your dialogue options because of how proficient they are with those, but you can also use them for other things outside of combat depending on the scenario. They're also going to gain Song of Rest at level 2, which allows you to regain health for you and your party as if you'd had a short rest. If you have Will in the party, then he will greatly benefit from this, since his spell slots will be replenished. With Song of Rest, you essentially save short rests for more critical and perilous situations. Once you hit level 3, you're going to be able to choose your subclass from the College of Lore or College of Valor. And this decision basically changes, whether you get Cutting Words or Combat Inspiration respectively, as well as whether you get more proficiency with skills in the case of College of Lore, or if you get more proficiency with armor and shields and weapons in the case of College of Valor. Cutting Words imposes a penalty on enemies' attack rolls, ability checks, and damage by subtracting 1d6 from any of these rolls, so there's a high chance that their attack will miss or the damage they deal won't be as, significant. This makes the College of Lore bard much more of a support role in the sense that they'll be even more effective outside of combat, and they'll be better at preventing damage from your party. However, I do suggest taking the College of Valor subclass in early access because it provides things that make the bard survive a lot better, like medium armor and a shield, which he can use in order to be able to gain a higher armor class and stay alive and survive attacks, particularly if you want to make him some sort of melee build. Additionally, Combat Inspiration will modify Bardic Inspiration, and instead of just giving them a d6 to their attack roll, ability check, or saving throw, they can choose to add this to their succeeding weapon damage roll or to boost their armor class. So it sort of expands the variety of things that you can use this for, which is phenomenal. Keep in mind again, though, that combat inspiration only lasts for one action, so you'll have to use it on that character if they take an attack or if they take a defense. Also at level 3, bards will gain expertise to choose 2 skills that they're already proficient in order to apply their proficiency bonus to these skills as well, which will really help them succeed with these particular abilities. And again, if you choose dialogue-related ones like persuasion or intimidation, deception, it basically makes it so you can pass almost ability check, and or at least in early access anyway, when it comes to these. So that's why bards are really good in dialogue scenarios. I do want to note, though, that expertise was also added to the rogue at level 1 as it is in 5e, so now rogues will also have this ability from the very beginning of the game, so you can actually make rogues very effective at dialogue as well, or at, things outside of combat too. You'll also gain access to level 2 spells at this level, and I suggest taking Phantasmal Force, which effectively deals 1 to 6 psychic damage every turn for 10 turns, as long as you maintain concentration. This is not a bad choice for a bard, because bards spend a lot of their actions like supporting the party with different things, and this will allow them to deal damage while they still have freed up their action on successive turns in order to do support type roles. At level 4, you'll gain another level 2 spell slot as well as a cantrip, and you'll gain a feat. I highly recommend selecting the ability improvement to raise your charisma to 18 if you're just playing like a support bard. But if you're playing a melee bard, depending on whether you are wearing medium armor or not, and whether you went dexterity or strength, you may want to increase your strength or dexterity in order to increase your melee damage. It really depends on sort of the way you went, but if you're not sure what to do, highly recommend just taking charisma to 18. When it comes to spells, I suggest taking either Lesser Restoration or Shatter, depending on your focus. If you want to be more of a support, then Lesser Restoration is a better option. If you need a little bit more damage, you're finding your bard isn't dealing as much damage as you want, then Shatter is a fantastic AoE ability. When it comes to equipment for the bard, you'll most likely be using a one-handed weapon and a shield if you chose College of Valor and you gain shield proficiency. This is to give you more armor and to be able to melee. That's what you'll use for your melee setup. And also, on the other hand, you'll likely use like a crossbow of some type that will use your dexterity score, and that will give you a ranged option if you want to conserve spells. When it comes to martial weapons, you should probably look out for the Steelforged Sword, which can be found in the Blighted Village, and it deals up to 510 piercing damage together with Flourish to impose a disadvantage on target's attack rolls. When it comes to armor, the best thing you can wear is Lysel's Githyanki Half-Plate. If you're using 14 dexterity, this will give you 17 armor. If you add the shield, that's 19 armor. That's the best you can do. If you don't want to use that, you're going to have a little bit lower armor class, so just keep that in mind. When it comes to accessories to equip, the Cap of Curing, which is very good, which can be found in the Gilded Chest near the Druid Grove. This is perfect for a bard because it lets you heal allies for a small amount of HP when you use combat or bardic inspiration on them. And another decent accessory is the Absolute's Talisman from the Shattered Sanctum, since this restores a portion of your HP when you deal damage, as long as your HP is low. The Bard is an amazing class that's more suited for a support role than dealing massive amounts of damage, so if you choose the Bard, keep in mind that you're not going to be a DPS monster, that you're going to be somewhere in the middle. You're going to be able to help out outside of dialogue, you're going to be able to help out with a little bit of healing, you're going to be able to help out with a little bit of damage. They kind of fall into that jack-of-all-trades that I was mentioning earlier. One of the challenging things about playing a Bard in BG3 is that you have to manage your Bardic Inspiration uses as well, because it's very easily to use them in a single encounter, because they're so useful and they are a bonus action, which means you can still use them every round and still cast a spell or do an attack. So knowing, and learning when to use them and when to hold off using them is important. One of the good things, though, about BG3 is that it's not so difficult to rest. So you can, use them a little more liberally than you would during, like, tabletop, and then just rest and gain them back. However, if you didn't spend all your spells on other classes, it might not be prudent to do that because it does require camping supplies or food in order to rest now in BG3. That change has been in for a little while now. So you might not be able to do it as effectively or as easily as you once could. Also, I want to note that using Bardic Inspiration defensively tends to be a better use of it than offensively, with the exception of being able to kill something that then won't be able to attack in, like, before your next turn or something like that, to prevent damage that way. And lastly, I want to remind you that Dissonant Whispers, Thunderwave, and Vicious Mockery are your most potent spells and cantrip for most encounters, because not only do they deal decent damage, but they also inflict certain conditions that impose disadvantage on your foes. So you want to use these, you know, like opening up in combat to prevent damage from your allies while dealing damage at the same time. So these are very, very effective. That pretty much wraps up our Bard build guide. What do you guys think of the Bard so far? I've been having a blast playing this on Twitch on my playthrough. There's just so many things you can do with the Bard, and they absolutely excel outside of combat, which, you know, you spend a ton of time doing in BG3. Are you guys playing a College of Lore Bard? Or are you playing a College of Valor Bard? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below.